Okay, good. I get to start over again. So hello again, and it's really great to see you all, and thank you for coming to this program from Advancement and Outreach. I'm Valerie Grossman from the Kalamazoo meeting, and I've already mixed up my sentences. So this program is on spiritual deepening and vital community, a two-way street. And it is the fourth of 5 programs this year from Advancement and Outreach. Previously, we had sessions on prayer, the peace testimony, and leadings. And next month will be the final session on the 19th of March at 7 p.m. on spiritual companions and spiritual companioning. One thing that Advancement and Outreach does is to read the State of the Meeting reports. I enjoy reading the State of the Meeting reports from all the monthly meetings. Each meeting has its own way of living out our faith together. And the reports are full of inspiration and wonderful ideas. Reading over and over about how the spiritual life is growing and the many ways community is being built make me eager to know more. We can learn from each other when we share our stories. That was the seed. And we've put this program together to explore it further. We have 3 panelists for tonight's program: Tricia Lockman from Athens meeting, Paul Helbling from Broadmead meeting, and Debbie Nolan from Red Cedar meeting. Each panelist will introduce themselves and their meeting and share something about what their experience of spiritual growth and deepening and community life has been. Panelists will be sharing their lived experience. So what they are reflecting of their monthly meetings may not be the same as others, even from the same monthly meeting. After they introduce themselves and share a bit, there will be a few queries with brief responses from the panelists, after which the panelists will have an opportunity to ask questions of each other and make further comments and maybe have a brief discussion. After all this, we will have questions and discussions amongst the entire group and hopefully sharing your own experiences. So we'll start with Tricia Loughlin will start us off. And Tricia, it's all yours.
Okay. Good evening. I'm from the Athens Friends meeting in Athens, Ohio, and I've been a person in Athens that has worked as a mediator, as a piano instructor, and of a mother, and as among other things. But those were the 3 biggies. And now I'm retired, but I'm still doing those things, but with grandchildren. So it's good to be here. At this point in time, I'm the convener of Athens Friends Meeting, what we call our Seeking in the Light Committee, which has the role of encouraging spiritual growth in individuals and the community Friends meeting. Each first Sunday of the month, we create a session that encourages awareness of spirit, which has names such as Great Spirit, God, the Light, Great Oneness, or Holy Spirit, all of which have to do with becoming more loving, caring, whole, truthful, and peaceful. This year, we planned 3 different sessions in the beginning, which we called Quakerism 101. We have quite a few new attenders and members of late, which is great. So we began with a study of the history of Friends in 1650 to 1750, focusing on the term leading and what it meant to early Quakers and what it means for our meeting today. Our hope was to give each person attending the session, encouragement to speak about what a leading meant to them and to share an experience of being led in some manner by God, Spirit, higher power, etc. Speaking of leadings in Athens Friends Meeting, we began in around 1980-81, about 46 years ago, in a university town of Athens, Ohio. And a leading for the whole meeting occurred a decade later when we were still a young meeting. We were looking for a meeting house that would house our growing group. Many wanted to be in the larger town of Athens where we had been located. But property was really expensive there, and in a little village of Chansey, 6 miles away, it was much less expensive. And there, a former Catholic church building came available. But there was fuss and protest among us from many because it was out of our stomping grounds of Athens. Athens Friends Meeting needed a long period of sitting with and discussing what to buy. But eventually, a leading was clear to go forward with buying the building in Chansey. It had been a long path and taught us a lot about patience and trust. As time passed, many of us became involved with the village and its tiny library, its community governance, care for the kids in the community, and festivals and other concerns. So we indeed became embedded in that new place, and we're finding ways to work with people and reach out to them. Now, a second Seeking the Light session, which was focused on 1750 to 1880, particularly looked at different ways that the spirit is experienced and transmitted in different types of religions. For instance, ritual, sacrament, and liturgy are the main ways Catholics understand spirit. Teaching, sermon, and biblical text are the most important ways among Protestants. Mystical and prophetic experience are prominent among Quakers and other mystic religions. We then encouraged attendees and members to speak about their religious backgrounds and to give them a chance to share the good and the not so good types of spirituality they had grown up with. This helped us to understand how earlier differences in spirituality could cause uncomfortableness among us presently. We needed to be empathetic toward one another despite these differences and to seek to grow more spiritually akin to one another now. The last session of Quakerism 101 was focused on exploring the values and underpinnings of compassion and service toward vulnerable, exploited people, and especially looking at the 20th and 21st century. Social justice is so important to Quakers, and we talked about how we as individuals and as a monthly and yearly meeting are trying to listen for leadings for service. We gave each attender a chance to speak about their experiences in social justice work, locally and afar. From these experiences, we became less fearful about this work. One among us, Peggy Gish, who I think is here tonight, served in Iraq with Christian peacemaker teams during the Iraqi war, and she has bolstered our ability to find courage for caring for people in difficult and dangerous zones. Every year, Speaking in the Light Committee asks several people to prepare a spiritual journey talk, and I know many meetings do this, so that we're acquainted as a whole meeting with the spiritual growth that has happened through the speaker's life journey. These talks never fail to draw us closer to each other, and every year somebody is eager to do it, and we really enjoy them. A different way of community building and vitality building comes from Donna Lofgren, whose ministry is singing. She brings us together twice a month for an hour or half hour of singing from the Rise Up Singing and Rise Again songbook. And her voice and guitar lead us into deep and loving spirituality. Friends love learning her songs. John Howe leads singing with his auto harp on the weeks in between, often with hymns from worship in song, a Quaker hymnal. You know, a lot of people have asked me when they are thinking of coming to meeting if it's silent the whole time, and I always have to tell them, no, we are big on singing. So that's a good thing. Another thing that happens among us on the fifth Sundays of the year are something that I think is called worship for fun. Sometimes we have soup, sometimes we make art, sometimes we all wear pajamas. There's just all sorts of things that happen in that time. And these are important times in our community to be revitalized. So on that, I will say thank you for listening.
Thank you, Tricia. Paul Helbling is next from Broadmead. And you're muted.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this session tonight. My name is Paul Helbling. I've been attending Broadmead Quakers in Toledo for the last 16 years. So I think I'm going to be taking a different approach to this. So please bear with me. What can I share with you about Broadmead? At one time, Broadmead had 4 worship groups from Toledo to Sydney, with Bluffton and Findlay in between. During our 50th anniversary celebration, I found out that Defiance had a worship group at one time. And that's right down the road from me, very easy to drive to. All of our worship groups come together once a month for worship for business. And this is in person. We would drive to Sydney, we could drive to Bluffton, we could drive to Findlay, and people drove to Toledo in a 4-month cycle. And of course, there was great potluck food to maintain us. On Wednesday, the 18th, we came together on Zoom to organize for tonight and discussed our queries related to growing community and growing our spirituality and their relationship to each other. I will read 2 short queries that we discussed. How does spiritual deepening as a meeting increase a sense of community? How do we find joy in community that deepens our spiritual connections? So, with that said, I have decided to tell the story of what happened at Toledo Worship last Sunday. I asked my community to share their thoughts on the 6 queries as we shared our simple meal of soup. Traditionally, the 4th Sunday of each month is a simple meal of soup after worship and the 11th hour, and a non-structured event. Out of this discussion, we came up with 11 reasons why our community and our spirituality are related. Number 1, Broadmead holds an annual weekend retreat, which in my 15 years as a member is well attended. Saturday night of every retreat is what we call game, puzzle, and social night. Quakers from other meetings are invited to attend and have always added to that weekend. Number 2, spiritual formation twice a month. The first Wednesday is a book discussion. The book changes every year. The third Wednesday is where are we? No, I'm sorry. The third Wednesday, we ask ourselves, where are we in our spiritual journey? Or, as I would kind of prefer, where am I in my spiritual journey? Number 3, we have worship for healing on the other 2 Wednesdays of the month. 4, we respect each other's spiritual gifts and allow them to be a support for Broadmead. 5, we have been very fortunate to have strong clerks of the meeting to handle difficult situations. For example, the pandemic and how to implement Zoom. And of course, the bigger question became, what do we do with Zoom after the pandemic? Should we continue it? Number 6, we welcome other Quakers to our spiritual formation on Zoom, which we have 2 participants joining us regularly. Number 7, Broadmead members have different beliefs, which is accepted by the community by listening deeply and respecting each other's spiritual journey. Number 8, Bible passages are accepted in our discussions and events, and interpretations are discussed with respect to each other. Number 9, Broadmead worship group come together. Broadmead worship groups come together, which is only two now, Bluffton and Toledo, to volunteer at community programs. Number 10, Broadmead support members to attend the School of the Spirit and discuss what a member might experience after they return home. That is basically a pretty open discussion, but most of it comes from the person who attended the Spirit of the School of the Spirit. And number 11 and last Sunday, we coined a new saying, coming together events, which bring us together. For example, a yearly cornfest, gatherings for a simple lunch at various restaurants during the year, and of course, those game nights and potlucks at member houses. I would like to just remind you that this came out of a discussion of my community. I took the queries to them last Sunday. It was potluck, there was no agenda, and they all jumped in. It was a lively discussion. And also, we touched on our own spiritual journeys. I heard someone say something about the 5th Sunday of the month. We have always had a very active youth program. It goes up with the number of youth, it goes down as they become teenagers and leave us, or, as they become adults. And they came up with, I'm sorry, they came up with the idea that the 5th Sunday is Sunday, ice cream, Sunday is the 5th Sunday of the month throughout the year. So we have been blessed with our youth program. Right now, we have no youth. It is there, ready to begin, even if one child or young adult came to our group. And that is my preparation for tonight. And we'll follow the agenda from here.
Thank you, Paul. And now Debbie Nolan from Red Cedar.
There we go. Good evening, everybody. It's great to see 3 people from my own meeting, Cheryl, June, and Terry Grant, and June Grabemeyer, and Cheryl Vandeker Key. And also shout out to Wayne and Jana Norland in Grand Rapids. I haven't seen you forever, so good to see you. I'm Deb Nolan. I've been at Red Cedar Friends meeting. It's the only meeting I've ever attended. This is only my 46th year of being at Red Cedar Friends. And I have seen so much change, as you can imagine, in our meeting. And one of the biggest changes is approximately 15 years ago, we built a beautiful new meeting house. So I want to make sure that all of you know you are invited, and we'd love to see you at 10:30 worship on Sunday. We also have a 9 a.m. worship. So we have the 9 a.m. worship is kind of special because it's like anywhere between 8 to 12 people, and there's no technology. And that's become a very special place for a lot of people. Our main meeting is at 10:30, and we have maybe 40 people in the room, 30 or 40. And then we have another 8, 10, 12 online. So we've roughly been hitting around 60 people every Sunday. About over 20 people are coming who are new, which is just amazing. I really think they're coming primarily for community and for solace in these difficult times that we're all living through together right now. The trauma and drama. We do so many things. I guess I'm kind of jealous of Athens singing every Sunday. We don't have that, and I'd like to hear more about Paul's Cornfest. We did start an ice cream thing. Carolyn just started that. I'd also like to adopt PJs for meeting for once, just once in a while. That would be kind of fun. But we're having a game day from 2 to 4 this Saturday at the Quaker Meeting House. Becky Payne and David Castro picked a restaurant in town, and I just said, anybody who wants to come. And when they got to 14, Becky said, that's it, because, that's plenty to bring into one restaurant for one table. So, and I'm planning on having just movie night at the house, just running like a Netflix movie. Mainly, our membership and outreach committee, which I'm on, we're interested in how we can keep engaging all these newcomers. Lots of them are already on our committees. They're on, hospitality and membership and outreach, and they're getting folded into the whole life of the meeting. So and by the way, a lot of them are younger. That's even better. There are, there's quite a few because we're near MSU. So the things that we've been doing as a whole meeting are, we had Faithful Communities with a woman named Mary Linda McKinney, and we were her trial. So we met as a whole meeting in our meeting house. We broke into small groups, and we did that for about a year and studied together and learned together. Unfortunately, Mary Linda is not continuing doing Faithful Communities. We have been doing spiritual formation. Terry Grant, who's here, you probably know better than I, but it's been at least 15, maybe 15 years, 20. And this year, I think we had over 30 people sign up. And in my spiritual formation group, there are 6 women, 2 of whom are newcomers. One who's like in her 70s and one who's in her 30s. So it's been a really great way for me to get to know these new people. We have another thing going on called God's Promise Fulfilled, which is through School of the Spirit, where one of our members, Joanne Newroth, is on the board of directors, and she created the class called God's Promise Fulfilled, subtitled Embracing and Encountering the Shadow with Grace, Embracing and Encountering with Grace the Shadow of Empire. So I call the class Resisting Empire. there are 7 people. One is June, who's with us tonight, and myself, and 5 other people from our Quaker meeting are doing this program. The program consists of 4-day retreats. We call them residencies. 2 that are held at Pendle Hill and 2 that are held at Weber Center in Adrian, Michigan. It's been fabulous. If talk about spiritual deepening, that class is done it for me. It's been great to know Quakers. There's 22 people from around the country who are participating. Again, it's a hybrid class, both in Zoom and in person. So I would encourage people to go out to School of the Spirit and sign up for classes with them. I spent a spring term at Pendle Hill. I know Karen Hooker, one of our members, went to Pendle Hill. That's a fabulous experience too. So I'll stop there. That's just some of the things we're doing. Another thing we're doing right now, though, is preparing meals as a meeting for a whole group of homeless people that have been put up in a motel. And so there's just so much going on. And I feel really grateful to be part of this community, my community, and the whole Quaker community as a whole. So I look forward to discussion later.
Thank you, Debbie. Well, that was 3 very different introductions to themselves and their monthly meetings. Susan, do you have a feeling for what would be a good first query after 3 different introductions?
Right. Well, I'm fascinated with the different approaches that individuals and meetings have to the subject, and it reminds us of how broad the concept of spiritual deepening is. And I heard sort of different expectations and understandings of from each one, whether it has to do with leadings, whether it has to do with community and a sense of discovering together or doing things together. And I'm wondering, I'd be interested in each of you just commenting on how do you recognize spiritual deepening in your meeting? I mean, you talked about some ways that it's encouraged, perhaps, but how do you know? I mean, I felt from all of you that you're experiencing this in your meeting, but how do you know that this truly is spiritual deepening and not just a group that gets together to play cards every week or something, which, that's a piece of it, but it's not, it's a little different. So any one of you can jump in first and then we'll go to the others.
If you're talking, are you talking to the 3 of us, Susan? Or you're just opening it up to the whole group?
No, I'm talking to the 3 panelists now. We'll open it up to everybody in a little bit, but right now, and I'll also say if you want to respond to something somebody else said in the process of this, of how, if you've learned something else and want to add to it from what you heard somebody else say, that's fine too.
In my case, I'd like to hear what Cheryl or June or Terry might have to say about the very meeting I spoke about, because I might have thrown something off the bus or not brought it up.
Why don't we hear from the panelists first, and then we'll have an opportunity for everybody to share, your ideas on all of this.
Well, one thing I noticed in our meeting of late is that says that there's spiritual vitality is when somebody starts to come to meeting, And then the next week they come to meeting. And then the week after that, they bring somebody to meeting with them. And then somebody else comes after that. And we have that bit happening right now in our meeting with students who, Ohio University students who, we've kind of wooed for a lot of years, but not really had a lot of connection with them, it seems. And now I sense something, quite different in them coming and bringing friends.
To answer your question, Susan,
Mhm.
how do we know when we are experiencing spiritual deepening? When someone is sharing their spiritual journey, I cannot judge whether they are going deeper or they are off in left field. All I can do is sit there and listen. And a lot of times when you do that, you feel the energy coming from that person, or you don't, but you do not judge. I I'm sorry. I used the word you. I should have used the word I.
Um, I think all of you touched on this in some way, but the title of this session uses the term a two-way street. And we had some discussion as we were planning it. Does vital community lead to spiritual deepening? Does spiritual deepening lead to vital community? How are they related to each other, or are they? I mean, I think all of you have implied that they are related, but I'm wondering if there's anything else you'd like to add to that.
I think in building community, it's really important that we invite people into our homes and that we make an effort to have a personal relationship. Um, I love the idea of a corn fest and things like singing, things like games. I really think they matter in terms of building community outside of worship. And I'm not sure that that's deepening the spirit, but it's deepening the relationships among ourselves.
I think in Athens, I've noticed that many people are coming in a new way because of the times we are in, which somebody else brought that up too. And I think all of us are really challenged to know what we can do that would, be resisting, but not doing things that are contrary to our values. And so a lot of times that I've been having young people in for some dinners, like you were talking about, Debbie, and inviting them to some of the groups that we're involved in the community in Athens that are trying to, encourage our community to be sort of woken up instead of just letting this thing roll over us. And so, yeah, I think that shows me a sense of deep spiritual deepening, that people are coming to our community, our meeting to be encouraged by.
The Toledo worship group is a very small group. We might have at the most 8 people for Sunday worship in person, and maybe 6 on the Zoom. And the other thing that I never mentioned is twice a month we connect with Bluffton on Zoom and worship together. I didn't mention that. But as to a two-way street, I personally feel and have experienced that community and spirituality are really connected. Whether it is a community like Broadmead, Toledo, or the larger groups where there might be, I don't know, 6 or 8 people who have form a community within a community. I experience a lot of several different communities within a larger community in a very mega Catholic church in Phoenix. Kathleen and I was in several ministries in that greater community. And the other thing I believe in through my spiritual journey is that everybody on this screen is connected. And everybody who is not on this screen is connected to each other in some way. And I would call that the Spirit of God.
Thank you. I want to sort of push us in a slightly different direction for a minute. And that is sort of in any community, there are always invariably conflicts, misunderstandings, disagreements, whatever. And I'm wondering, have you found, has spiritual deepening and or the vital community affected how your meeting addresses these conflicts that are going to arise, no matter how wonderful, we've heard some really good pictures, and I'm really impressed with what's happening in your meetings, but does it affect how you respond when issues come up in the meeting?
One of the items that I mentioned was that we were blessed with strong clerks that ran the meeting. But also that clerk was supported by the whole community by respecting the differences that we have. It is a small community for us. And I think we know each other a little more. I mean, I use the word I think we know each other a little more, not only from the spiritual side, but the social side. And that gives strength to the community, because we will listen to the conflict without speaking. We'll speak through the clerk of the meeting until we come to that consensus. We in Broadmead, Toledo, and Bluffton, we do use Zoom, and I think at the beginning, I personally was kind of like, oh wow, no way, but it has proven to be a very good tool for us because we cover such a large area in our as I spoke, all the way going down to Sydney, Ohio at one time. So and today those members who did, you might say, objected to using Zoom after the pandemic are now on board after they've seen the value of it.
Any other thoughts on how this affects addressing conflict within your meeting?
I'd say that we have a lot of involvement with clearness committees, where things that come up that are problematic or uncomfortable or whatever, if meeting for if the Ministry and Nurture Committee feels it's appropriate, and the clerk, or clerks in our case, they push them towards thinking about a clearness committee and having it described to them as a place where they can have a more intimate way to work through a conflict. And I can say nothing but good words about that. It's just a fabulous way to be connecting a few individuals more deeply with the person who's perhaps having the conflict, and them feeling supported and heard. So, yay for fairness committees.
Yay. We had issues about just trying to find what kind of activity we would do as a meeting during these times. I really think Cheryl and Terry can speak to this more than I can. There were 2 threshing sessions that I attended. So the good old threshing session worked for the whole meeting, and that's how we came up to support the homeless in our community by doing a meal that everybody participated in, maybe once every other week. I don't know how often they're happening. Once a week. I'm not sure. But I think clearness committees, threshing sessions, great ways of resolving conflict.
Thank you all. Is there anything else any of the panelists would like to share, either with each other or in general, before I open this up to all the participants? Okay. Why don't we, I think we had said if we had more than one page of participants, we'd break into small groups, but we don't. We have one page. So I think we can ask folks if you would like to share experience from your meeting, if you would like to comment on something that you've heard, if you have other thoughts you would like to share, or if you have questions for panelists about something you heard from them that you're more interested in hearing how about, just go over to the react button and raise your hand. There's a choice that says raise hand there, and we'll call on you. June from Red Cedar.
I would say one thing that's important in terms of conflict and addressing issues is when you have known someone on a more personal level and a fellowship and a connection, it's easier to listen and hear them out and hold their views, even if they differ from your own. And one thing I see at Red Cedar that's been helpful is our committee that handles our after worship coffee fellowship time has stepped up, and they provide that coffee, tea, snack fellowship time after the 9 o'clock as well as after the 10:30. And we see a lot more connection between the 9 o'clock and 10:30, as the 9 o'clock is enjoying their fellowship time, 10:30 is coming in and you're visiting. So and then through the spiritual formation group that I'm in, there's the 6 of us. Then when we get together, I think there's more of a connection with what's going on in our personal lives as well as the book that we're studying and working on. And when somebody has a different view, when you know them better and you hold them in fellowship and community, it's easier to listen to what they're saying and feel what they're saying. And I felt that a great deal in our threshing sessions about the unhoused community in Lansing.
Rick, did you have your hand up? Yes, Rick.
Yes, thank you. I'll lower it here. I appreciate friends gathering tonight for this conversation. It's really been helpful to me. Our meeting, I think, has been experiencing some conflict in the realm of how do you know whether it's spiritual deepening and not just an activity that one is doing and I'm speaking specifically of meeting for worship, not in outside of the meeting for worship, just but specific to our meeting is intentional about inviting welcoming neurodiversity. So in our welcome, before we enter into silence, we say, move about as your needs dictate and deepen worship in any way that feels appropriate to you. And we throw out some examples: reading, knitting, drawing. But we don't say use your smartphone, though some people do. And I was sitting in a meeting this past Sunday, and I noticed one person doing watercolors with her brushes in the jar and taking them in and out, and one person doing color pencils, and one person journaling quite a bit, and one person, a couple of people reading. And the thought crossed my judgmental mind, well, is this a meeting for worship or is this a meeting for relaxation? And George, I appreciate your or Paul, I'm sorry, your is this, sometimes you feel it and sometimes you don't, but you don't judge. But when I go to a meeting for worship, and I think this is important for any meeting for worship, I go for the potential to have a gathered meeting, a sense of the meeting being covered by spirit. And maybe I'm just out of sync with the times. And, those sort of activities for our meeting in particular are important to the meeting. But our meeting is in some conflict about it. Our Ministry Nurture Committee has been struggling with this concern for months, if not a year or more. So I'm just mentioning all of this to say that our meeting is concerned about this question. How does community and spiritual connection, the individual and as a corporate body, how does it play out in our meeting for worship? I don't have any answers. I don't have any suggestions. I just wanted to throw it out there as my experience in our meeting.
Thank you. I'm wondering if any of the panelists have responses to Rick's concerns.
I'll mention my experience in the 15 years with Broadmead. Over the 15 years, we have lost a few members who have left us in death. And I can picture 3 of them today that when they were present at the meeting, it was going to be a gathered meeting. And over the years, as we lost these people, I have experienced less and less of a gathered meeting. But I feel that my obligation, even though this has happened, or at least I think it has happened to me, is I have to show up. I have to show up and participate in the worship. And over that time, I feel I have come close to feeling a gathered meeting. Or at least I think so. But I think that's part of, that has been part of my spiritual journey. Being at a high level and gradually in the concept of a gathered meeting, having less and less. But I choose to show up, except when on vacation.
Paul, I'm wondering if you could say a little more about how a gathered meeting is evident. What happens that makes you know that it's gathered or not?
How do I know? Well, I think I feel a deepness, a spirit that has taken me to a place that I normally am not at. And I think it's also the energy in the room. Everybody is trying to reach a deeper consciousness. But that is what I think.
Thank you.
Raises a concept of spiritual deepening. How do we see it? We see it in connection with people. We see it in our meeting for worship. We may see it in our meeting for worship for business. And does it feel differently in different contexts? And how do we know, what is spiritual deepening? I'm interested in how we define this.
I would like to correct myself in that last statement that I made. It's not a thinking, it is an experience, a different experience that I don't normally have. And as to deepening ourselves in the spirit, I would throw out a caution to every Quaker. If you do not have a deep experience in worship, don't blame yourself. Don't beat up on yourself. It is what it is, and accept that as part of your journey. And show up next week.
Bill.
One of the things that I think about is there's an emotional experience that I sometimes have in a meeting that feels more gathered. There's expressions of love. There's a sense of some kind of connection to something that's beyond us as a body, and it can be sort of spontaneous, or it happens unexpectedly. We have people on Zoom, for instance, and we also have a person in our meeting who has a form of epilepsy. And there was a person on Zoom who was describing the experience of a family member who had epilepsy and had an experience, not knowing that the person in the room also was living that. And it was a beautiful moment where spirit showed up and cared for both of those friends. Um, and that for me, making space for it, I think there was not a dry eye. And I think that there's sometimes I would just call it love. That's what I'm thinking about.
Are there challenges or joys that arise from the diversity of experience that come with newcomers and old timers and reaching community and reaching spiritual deepening? Anybody, this is not just panelists, anybody wants to share from your meeting or other experiences? John?
I'd like to speak in response to an earlier question that you asked, and that's about how do you deal with difficulties in meetings, conflicts, and so on. And I think it may be worth sharing something from our meeting that happened a few years ago now, but there arose a concern about a particular individual's behaviors sort of in and out of meeting. And so we had a clearness committee with this person that met, I don't remember how many times, but it was certainly 3 or 4. And to challenge this person about some of his behaviors that seemed inappropriate. And by that, I don't mean just kind of, it dealt with honesty in his interactions with people in the outside world and with others in the meeting and activities outside the meeting. And that was a real concern because this person didn't seem to be able to acknowledge the validity of the concern that a number of people in meeting had because of their interactions with this person. So what happened as a result of that was, it seems like harking back to very old times, but his membership was withdrawn. And what it sort of indicates is that there was an expectation that we had in the meeting that our testimonies need to be lived in the outside world. And if they're not, there is a challenge that should be raised. You read it back in history, and if the early Quakers weren't absolutely honest in their business dealings, they were booted out. And so it harkens back to that. But after the membership was withdrawn, we didn't stop caring for that person. That person had a number of difficulties, health difficulties and so on, which a number of us in the meeting have continued to assist him with. And it was a situation that the person just seemed to be unable to listen to the concerns that were being raised. So it's hard to know whether we did a right thing or not, but that's what we did. And I do feel comfortable with it in the sense that we didn't reject him because we kept looking after him in a way, but we did not accept what he wanted to do in meeting, and we did not accept some of these other behaviors that had characterized his interactions with people. So I think it's a testimony that for us, Quakerism is not based on theological beliefs. It's a practice. And as we come together in that practice and share with each other these interactions that not only occur within the meeting, but elsewhere, that we put on ourselves a discipline. You know, sometimes it says, well, Quakers will accept anything. I think we accept a wide variety of things, as a matter of fact, particularly theological things. That isn't a troublesome area. But there's another dimension of expectations here that I think that we do understand a discipline that we expect of ourselves. And if we expect it of ourselves, we expect it of each other in the community. And so I just wanted to share that experience because it seemed unusual to us at the time in terms of what we did. But it was a growth experience for us, and one in which we really tried very hard to find an alternative, and we did not. So that is in fact what we did. So thanks for listening. I just wanted to share that.
I just wanted to comment on the idea that one of the things that attracted me to Quakerism was this idea that there's individual leadings and there's room for that, but then there's the seasoning and there's the corporate finding unity in the larger body. And I feel like that's one of the secret sauces of Quakerism is sort of you can test your leadings and you can sort of see how the body reacts. And so the person that was being described earlier was not taking the larger group's concerns into account, maybe focusing more on the individual leading. And so finding that balance may be part of our spiritual journey. Of course, empathy is a very important part of being a human.
We have a large group tonight. This is the largest turnout we've had for any of our programs this year. So I'm curious, what was it about the topic that interested you and brought you here? This is open to the whole group. Rick?
Well, my interest was twofold. One, it was personal, and I think I described some of my personal concerns that brought me to this tonight so that I could hear others share their personal experience. And the second reason was I am not only concerned about my spiritual development, but my meeting's spiritual health and development. And I just want to go back to this concept of a gathered meeting and what that means. It's a transcendent experience when I'm in a meeting that feels gathered. And it happens rarely, but it does happen. And I come to meeting for worship for the potential to be gathered. Now, if that potential continues to feel less and less possible, then my interest in coming to worship is less and less. And if I feel this way and others feel this way, then the health of my meeting might suffer, or not. It just becomes a different meeting. And that's one of the things that brought me tonight was, what is the larger picture in terms of what it is to be a Quaker meeting? And are we a Quaker meeting if we don't practice if we don't engage in the practices that make us Quaker? At what point does it become so diffuse that it no longer looks, feels, and acts like Quaker? I guess. And your sharing of your experiences helped me tonight. I don't know where that's going to lead me, but it has helped me.
Thank you, Rick. I hear you. Anybody else? Clemence.
I belong to a very small worship group. We're lucky if we have 6 people. And I came partly to hear about the spirit of the yearly meeting, because as a person who takes the health of the yearly meeting very seriously, I feel I'm as much or more a part of the yearly meeting as I am of my worship group. And maybe that's because I'm such an isolated friend that I've always felt more a part of the yearly meeting than any meeting or worship group locally. But it was really exciting to hear, particularly from Athens, which I've never visited, and nor Red Cedar. I think I've visited almost all the other meetings and worship groups, and certainly meetings in this yearly meeting over the years. But I was very excited to hear what's going on in some meetings I haven't visited. So I feel very spiritually lifted tonight because of that.
Thank you. Wayne or Jana? Did you still want to speak? You're muted. There you go.
Yeah, that was me that raised my hand. In answer to the question, what was it about tonight's topic that interested me? The phrase two-way street got my attention, and the way it was presented as a vital meeting and building community. Our meeting is in a bit of a unique situation right now. About this time last year, we were told that we had to leave our place of worship. The building was being sold. So we went through a process of finding a new place to be, which was a good process, and the process itself brought us together in some ways. But we didn't start meeting in our new location until midsummer we're meeting in a space within another church. And it's a very busy church, a very active, very liberal church in downtown Grand Rapids. So we've been putting a lot of energy into just all the logistics of making a place for people to come and worship, right down to how we manage the hybrid worship with Zoom and how we do a potluck and how we do first day school and where we keep our stuff. And I think we're just now getting to the point where we're every week we're more and more comfortable with being the welcoming Quaker meeting and friends community that we want to be. We do have a number of newer people attending, some of which sort of transitioned with us to the new location, and others who have discovered us in the new location. Having said all that, right now it's a feeling of faith that it's going to come together and our community will grow. We don't have committees. It's all committee of the whole because we're so small. But what that means is the same people are doing all the work. And that's where the two-way street phrase comes into it, that hearing about that, hearing some encouragement about how we can involve our attenders in a more involved way. And I think we're getting there. Week by week, it's getting better in terms of people understanding that they need to offer some help. I think for me, the most dramatic element is that we went to hybrid like everybody else during the pandemic, and we've decided to continue that post-pandemic. And in our new location, almost in sort of in a stubborn way, we have insisted on keeping that available because it means so much to so many of our attenders who live far away, or they can't come on a particular week, or they're going through an illness, or even traveling and attending from a distance. Keeping that hybrid worship opportunity available has been a struggle because the technology is kind of fussy. And one of the turning points with that was one Sunday, the folks who were attending who disliked the way the Zoom image is being projected on the wall, they just said, can't we just have a circle? Can't we just be in a circle? Because the projection screen was dominating the room. And just having somebody come back to us with that feedback and tell us, we want to sit in a circle. We want to worship together as a circle of friends and community. And that was kind of a breakthrough. And we figured out what we needed to do to bring the Zoom into the circle on a smaller monitor. That's just one example about how figuring this whole thing out together is strengthening our community, but it takes a lot of faith, and it takes a lot of eyes wide open understanding of what this new situation means to us as a community. And like the theme of tonight, it's a two-way street.
Thank you, Wayne. Steve or Becky?
Yeah, I want to thank Wayne for using a word that just kind of crystallized my meandering thoughts this evening, and that was logistics. And that takes me down the path in a different direction after thinking about what a gathered meeting is. And I feel recently in Ann Arbor, we have moments of being gathered and centered in a very still meeting that is quite alive. And that experience, if you get in the flow of that, it's nice to carry that with you beyond the meeting during the week. If you have that center of calmness and stillness within yourself. And I recognize that that ebbs and flows in life. But logistics, and when that word came out, I thought of the logistics of Quakerism and the amount of times we spend in committee, we're problem solving and outreach. And something that I miss, and part of the reason that I was curious about this with Becky, is the inward journey of finding that gatheredness within the meeting or within ourselves. And I feel like we're so busy with the logistics of all the things it takes to keep the meeting going and keep all our outward good intentions flowing that we miss out on that inward journey at times. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Terry.
And thinking about your question, Valerie, about what brought us here, what brought me here, the spiritual deepening aspect of the meeting is really important to me. And just by way of thinking of a concrete example, it's about how we do our meetings for business. And that we really, that the more deeply, the more people do their individual spiritual deepening, the more our meetings for business are connected to spirit. And so when we say the sense of the meeting or use the word unity instead of consensus, those kind of things are informed by the relationship that we as a meeting have to spirit. And I was very interested to know all the ways other meetings promoted that in their meeting.
Thank you, Terry. Is there anybody that I've missed? Well, that's sort of fortuitous because it takes us up to coming up on time to end. We have a few minutes to center and ponder what we've heard, hold them in our hearts before we say goodbye to each other tonight. Thank you again, friends, for coming. And Cassie, do you want to say anything about next month's program?
Sure. 4 of us from Lake Erie Yearly Meeting have done a number of evenings over the course of the last 5 years on spiritual companioning. Joanne Neurith and Barbara Lesage and I and Mark Hoover. And we've done it over and over, and we have had a number of people in Ann Arbor asking about spiritual companioning. So we will have an evening where we talk about what is the practice that we're using now. It's an ancient Quaker practice where when people were going out to speak to new meetings or new places, they always went with a companion or more, and would have times of companioning along the way. I apologize for my sore throat at the moment. A little bit scratchy. Hopefully by next month it'll be cleared out. It is from 7, we'll start at 7 instead of 7:30. So it'll be 7 to 9 because we will break into groups and have some practice time. We'll talk about it a little bit, then we'll have some practice time so that people can really get a sense of what companioning looks like, feels like.
On March 19th, Thursday night.
That helps. Yep.
So thank you again to everybody and have a blessed evening.